Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we interviewed Kristin Collier, who is an award-winning writer and a coach. And we're going to learn how she healed herself from a debilitating neurological disorder, how she was able to manifest money to go to Dr. Joe retreats when she didn't know how she was going to afford it. And we're also going to give you an opportunity to learn everything she learned in order to heal herself. So stick around to the end because this opportunity is only free for a limited time. Hey guys, thank you for joining us today. I'm with Kristin Collier, and she's an award-winning writer and a coach. Hey Kristen, what do you coach?
Well, I help people find their sparkle with practices that rewire the brain for more joy, better health, and happier relationships.
Let me tell you something. That part when you said more joy, that's the part that got me in the heart right there. Like the more joy is all I'm about right now. And I think most of society just wants more joy. So I think this is going to be like an amazing conversation for people to see how you went from a place that was not more joy to extreme amount of joy. And so tell me, like, I found your videos from you're talking about Dr. Joe's seminar and even manifesting how to get to there. But tell me, how did you exactly get in like Dr. Joe's work?
So, Dr. Joe Dispenza is not somebody that I went out looking for intentionally. It kind of was this long and winding road. I I have spent 20 years as a communication coach, helping people transform their lives and relationships. But in 2019, I was the one who really needed the transforming mark. I didn't know who Dr. Joe was. And frankly, I had been thinking to myself for a couple of years that I wanted to go on a meditation retreat, but I never made the time for it because I had too many responsibilities. I just couldn't see taking that time away for myself. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I hadn't, but here I am in 2019. I'm the one who needs transforming because I am laid up in bed and my four limbs, my arms and legs and my neck are on fire with neuropathy and we can't figure out exactly what's going on. And so I've been to I've been to Western medicine doctors, I've been to alternative medicine doctors, and they have come up with lots of diagnoses. We've got cubital tunnel syndrome in my arms and an instability in my neck, and there's a hormone imbalance. But there's not really clarity, and every treatment that they prescribe actually just makes me more inflamed, or it doesn't help at all, which also costs a fortune.
Yeah.
So frustrating. So I'm laying in bed, and the only thing I can do is meditate. And I discovered Dr. Joe and found myself on the path to meditation, which is what I'd always wanted, because my postural therapist had suggested I try him because I told her that she was my last hope. And she was like, I can't be your last hope. And why not? Because you have to be your last hope. What are you talking about? I can't. I don't know how to do this. I really didn't. I was so lost and I was so scared. And so she pointed me to Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Mm.
The cool thing about Dr. Joe, I bought the progressive workshop. That was the only thing I could do anyway, was lay in bed. I couldn't even read a book because when I would hold up the book, like it was painful to hold a
Wow.
book. Yeah,
That painful.
that painful. Like I couldn't pick up a
Wow.
pencil. I couldn't pick up a glass of water. There was like a straw in it. It was super intense. And so I listened to the progressive workshops online
Hmm.
a couple times. And then I managed to get up and do a meditation. And that was like my first time that I've been able to sit in a chair for any length of time. But I like had to really work myself up to it. And from that time, I was doing his meditations, and that was really helping during the time that I was in the meditation because I had these elevated emotions and I was feeling good, which was shockingly amazing because I was not feeling pain at the same time that I was feeling good, right? You can't like do both. And so when I shifted my attention, my energy there, I got that. And you're talking about joy and the importance of joy, Mark. So true. I mean, that was my first taste of real joy and really feeling good in forever. And the only thing that just bites is that meditation would end. And then came my regular life, you know? And so, I would struggle between the meditations,
Mm.
and it really affected, I mean, my whole body was affected and my whole life was affected. So there was this one night where
But
I'm sorry, go ahead.
before you go on, I'm gonna do something that nobody does on YouTube. I'm gonna ask you what meditation you did. 'Cause every time I hear a testimonial, nobody ever says what meditation they did. Which meditation was that?
Well, first of all, what meditation did I not do is really the question. There are like several meditations that are in the progressive bundle or, were at that time in 2019. And the ones that were the most valuable to me were the changing beliefs meditation.
I like that one.
Yeah. And then kind of a one that he evolved that into, I think, was changing boxes later on.
Was
And
change in belief the one that he goes change? You have to say change out loud and fuck up. I
um,
went 15 minutes. It's pretty long. I like it though.
Mm, it is like I think it's like an hour, it's close to an hour.
Yeah.
And and you have to come up with something before you start that you want to change your belief on. That's for sure.
Oh, that's a different one. Okay.
Yeah, I know there's a number that are kind of similar, but the idea is you go in, you have that elevated feeling, you take that belief and then you change to apply that feeling to it and see where you're going to go with this new belief coming out of it. So yeah, super
Did you ever
powerful.
do breaking blessing the energy centers?
Oh, do I? Did I? There's so many. And one of the things is after you do a 7-day retreat, you actually become an advanced student and more blessing of the energy centers, which are commonly called BOTEC by I know that's the jargon, Dr. Joe jargon, by, by those repeat performers. Um, we, uh, we have like a selection of another 10 or something that the folks who haven't been to the
Only
7-day
doesn't have.
retreat
Oh
don't have.
wow.
So I've done all those. And now what I tend to do in the morning, because I still do meditations most mornings, I actually have my own version of the blessing of the energy centers that I do for myself.
Awesome. All right, so
Yeah.
continue with the story. I just wanted
Oh,
to
yeah.
get that in there because nobody ever says what they do. So
I know. Like, how did you do it? Well, and at that point I was just doing those initial meditations that I got in the progressive. And um yeah, and so yeah, but my daytimes were still, kind of fraught. And I had this moment where I had not slept for 2 nights, and then the 3rd night, I was like, "Well, I can't wait till bedtime comes because I know I'm gonna sleep the 3rd night." I mean, how do you not sleep 3 nights in a row? And as I was getting closer to bed, I was like, "Okay, I'm ready to go." And then I'm laying in bed and nothing's happening. And by the way, I have to lay on my back only, and I have 3 pillows around each of my arms and legs and neck in order to get any kind of comfort, but I can't turn on my body because everything just hurts. So I'm laying there and I hear the clock ticking and I'm looking at the light on the wall with the shadows in it from the street lights. It is almost midnight. And I'm like, "Are you serious? Are you serious? Like I'm still awake at midnight?"
yeah.
And Mark, something happened inside of me that night. I was just so angry like this. It started as this slow boil and it came up just like this fire and just like lava inside of a volcano, and it just came up and up and up and up and up, and all of a sudden I just like couldn't take it anymore, and I I decided then and there I was not going to be separate from life anymore. I was not going to be separate from joy. I was going to live with joy. And I jumped out of bed and I grabbed my phone and I found the happiest song I could find and I put in earbuds and I started to dance. And I danced all around the house, which was impossible because I wasn't wearing my knee braces or my arm braces or anything that made it possible for me to move.
Mhm.
And somehow I was doing it like fiercely, joyfully dancing. And my teenage son was on the couch because being a teenager, of course, he was up at midnight and he's like, "Nice, mom." Because I'm like pulling these moves that I have not seen or thought of before in my life, which was amazing. And then I do 2 more songs and I walk back to my bed and it's covered with this mountain of pillows. And I'm like, "No more." And I just take them and one after another after another. I throw them in the corner, no more pillows. And then I flop down on my stomach and I go to sleep and I sleep through the night.
Wow.
I know.
Wow. That's
It was a
that through
breakthrough.
is like it's like enough is enough, you know?
Enough is enough.
Hmm.
Yeah,
A lot of times we
totally.
have to get there, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because I think I bounced down and then I bounced out of it hard and fast coming up, right? Because what I discovered in that time was that what happened inside me, if what happened inside of me was big enough, it could blow the walls off of what was happening on the outside, and I could change my reality. So that was the night that I think I did what Dr. Joe would call crossing the river. I crossed the river.
Mm.
And I'd like to tell you that it was like, oh, it was all better in the morning, but it didn't quite work that way. Beca- Because my brain, which honestly, I consider myself a pretty happy person just about all my life,
Yeah, me
but
too.
somehow this had happened, I think honestly, because my work was in processing and in relationships, I had helped so many people with empathy and working through hard things. But I think we need, now reflecting on it backwards, hindsight, I think we need to have a balance of a lot of joy
Mhm.
if we're going to be doing that kind of heavy lift.
Yes, 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 because we're holding the space, right?
We are, and we are human still. We're in this body, and this body needs joy, just like a
Mhm.
plant needs sunlight. We need that uplift and that sunlight. And frankly, a lot of things in my life that I think I worked through, even though I had a tool to work through them, and it did work, I think that if I had been more joyful, it would have worked through in a different way,
Oh
and it
yeah,
would have been way more effortless. So that was the big learning for me.
so much more effortless. I feel like especially teachers, uh, you made like a sacred contract, and I don't know, I see it as this loving thing that before we came into this life, we said we're gonna go through certain things so that we can help other people. Because just like you said, it didn't make any sense when I was going through that really crazy anxiety. I'm like, me out of all people, like I'm so laid back, you know. People think I'm so happy, and I am. I'm a happy person. Oh, how can I be going through this crazy anxiety, right? Like it doesn't even make any sense. The only way it made sense is that I was here to help other people. Obviously, ways that I was being created this, but I think this was part of my purpose, just like this was part of your purpose in order to heal yourself so that you can heal people. Because when you have done something yourself and you help other people, I feel like you've just taken that like bad and turned it into like a gift for the world. And so
Totally.
even when I look back at what I've went through, and I'm sure you feel the same way, I'm grateful for it because when I went through that like deep, like horrible anxiety and couldn't leave the house and that deep depression, and I was able to heal myself and bring myself back, I can look at my kids in the eye. I can look at my wife in the eye, my mom, a client, anybody, a friend, and say, you'll be okay. I can help you. Yeah.
Thing. So we think of joy as extra or bonus, and it's not.
Mhm.
It is totally vital to our well-being.
Mhm.
And that is such an important lesson. I mean, once I learned that, like that's something I can apply with everyone that I'm around for the rest of my life. And I apply it with my own sense of health and well-being. Super duper powerful.
Yeah.
And so it really, it made it so that why I call it my body crisis awakening. That incident really, it wasn't about my body at all. It was really about my whole life path shifting. And honestly, if I'd just been a better listener, I might have heard.
Yes. Yes. That's it right there. Listening.
I
Oh
would have
my
heard,
God. That-
"Ooh, go to the joy, go to the joy." She's not getting it. She's like, okay, we're gonna send her something to really bring her on. So, yeah. So I found my way, and now I'm really happy. And yeah, like you said, after I healed myself, it was this process of then supporting other people in healing. And the thing that was the most important piece came after that breakthrough because Dr. Joe's um Dr. Joe's point about think better feeling thoughts. It is true. That's absolutely correct.
Mhm.
But there was no logical coaching that I could pull out of his teaching to do that. But I had a background in behavior science and I was really fascinated with neuroscience. And so I basically broke down practices to do that for myself initially. And then I shared them with other people.
Mm.
And there've been amazing results. I've had people tell me that it saved their marriage. I've had people heal all kinds of things, allergies and, things in their body. But I primarily work with relationships and there's so many like byproduct things that it heals or,
Yes.
amazing things that happen because folks are learning how to direct their thinking. They learn how to direct their focus and then they are directing their feeling because your feelings follow your thoughts.
Yes.
whether that's worry and scary thoughts or joy and happy thoughts. And we have momentum in either way. So to learn how to change the direction and go with a different momentum is incredibly powerful.
So how did you learn to do that? Like, because this is I think the like the crux of it. Like for most people, when you think like the problem is what you're experiencing, and the problem is not what you're experiencing. That's not the root cause. The root cause of what you're experiencing is how you're thinking and feeling, right? And these things that are like playing on each other. And so the thing is that you have to like turn that train around, and like you said, move in another direction. So how did you get yourself to like move in that? Was it just that night? And then if it was that night that really changed everything for you, like how did you do that practically? Like what was the daily steps to like turn that train around?
Yeah, great question. The night was kind of a catalyst and just illustrated for me what was possible. And then during the day, I knew I had to find a way because now I had a felt experience of it. And that's very important. And even for people who are listening here, I'm hoping that through my telling of this story, you're getting a felt experience. For me, I would watch testimonials every week.
Mm,
I would, at least once a week for an hour or two, I would sit and watch testimonials
mm,
because I would hear the inspiration and information about how other people had addressed this. And I also understood that I needed to think better feeling thoughts. And so I started looking at, well, where do I fall off the train? How do I do that? And Dr. Joe also talked about his own healing journey,
mm,
about lying in bed after he broke his back and visualizing things. And then that visualizing, moving from there into the feel of it's really important to have the feel,
mhm,
which I'm totally, I experienced the benefit of that. And then my background is in nonviolent communication or compassionate communication for 20 years. And I brought in an aspect of that around universal needs,
mhm,
which are basically like if you're feeling good feelings, it's because your needs are met. If you're feeling feelings you don't enjoy, it's because your needs are not met, but is very specific about the different needs or different qualities of feeling. When you are meeting your need for community, which feels so good, so yummy, it feels different than when you're meeting your need for meaning.
mhm,
Like they have a slightly different resonance in the body. And so I added that angle of needs to that mental rehearsal plus feeling
mhm,
plus needs. And I call that practice priming.
mm.
And there are very specific steps to do the priming. And actually I'll tell you more about that maybe later because I have a free prime and shine challenge that's coming up that
Oh yeah,
I'm
well
teaching.
definitely.
Yeah, yeah,
Definitely
yeah, yeah.
we're gonna put
But
some links about that below too. So stick around so she can
yeah,
explain it. But like so tell me how like this look just a practical day. So somebody that's watching, tell
yeah.
me like how would a regular day go on this healing journey? Like getting up, going through the day and then going to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I woke up, when I was first like after the time of that catalytic dance amazingness, I would wake up in the morning and I would know that even though my body didn't feel like it could support like a walk, like a full length walk or anything,
Mm,
I would lay in bed and I would visualize myself walking. And then I realized, well, if I can visualize myself walking, I could visualize myself jogging. So I jogged down my local bark path and I was like, oh, it's beautiful. And I could smell the damp bark mulch and I could, using all my senses, I could hear the frogs croaking and the birds chirping. I was like, so amazing. And then I realized one day that it didn't have to be my local trail. I could actually jog in Iceland. So it's like you get to something, you're like, "Oh, that's better." And you're like, "But look, I could level up on that," right? So
mhm,
that's the beauty of the imagination because just like it can bring you into a spiral of anxiety or worry, it can also spiral up into something else. So
yeah.
I would spend like 20 minutes doing that, and I'll tell you what, I would be I would be ripping off the covers because I was so hot from that. There was so much energy that was so stuck in my body. It was just like I would just be roasting. And my muscles were starting to remember how to move too because those neural pathways in my brain, I hadn't moved my muscles in so long and I was actually my muscles had really atrophied. And so it was good for them to remember how to move. It made it like it didn't seem so far away. We're literally practicing in our brain. Whatever we practice in our mind makes it so much easier to do in real time.
Yeah.
So I would do that, and then I might, get up and get myself something to eat, and then I might go and sit and do an actual meditation, like a Dr. Joe meditation for another hour or 2. Sometimes I was doing 2, 3, even 4 meditations a day when it was in the really tricky part.
This is the work. See, you kept getting up, like Dr. Joe said, you keep getting up and you keep being that new person, right? So
Yeah.
even if it took you 3 or 4 meditations, see, like people say success leaves clues, healing leaves clues too. And this is a thing that I tell my clients all the time, like first thoughts are so important. You don't want to get up like ruminating on negative thoughts or thinking about all the bad things that can happen. The first, you have to get up with a plan. So for a lot of my clients, if they have anxiety, the first thing they do is get up and listen to this Louise Hayes audio where she goes through and gives thanks for everything. And so, I love that you get up and the first thing you're doing is you're doing your priming, and then you're doing meditations sometimes 3 times a day. And so this is going on through the midday too, like the middle of the day.
Yeah, I would do like a late morning meditation. So I might do an early morning meditation, a priming, a late morning meditation, and then I'd eat something and then I go do it again because, when you can't walk around much, you can't do much,
Yeah.
you're just kind of putzing around the house a little bit. And so then as time went on, I was able to walk a little further and a little further and a little further. And that was
Wow,
great
it's
because I'm
so
a very
beautiful.
active person. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That is
it was.
beautiful. What did you do when those doubts were telling you, like, this is not working, or this is too slow, or, because I also tell my clients, like, progress is not a straight line up. It's upward trending, it's like jagged up and down, but it's upward trending. So I know some of those days you probably felt great, and another day you were like, oh, this is not working. What did you do in those not working days?
Well, I remember that there were days in there that I just was in so much pain and I
Yeah.
just cried. And I think it's very important to find the people that you can do that safely with.
Mm.
And when I say safely, I mean people who believe that you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
People who hold the picture of your wholeness,
Yeah.
who don't believe you that you're broken.
Yeah.
So those are actually pretty rare. So I had a couple of those people in my life and I would ask people and I would find out before I ever asked somebody to be with me in that period, because if they come in and they're feeling like I'm broken, and that's what's being reflected back to me, and that's what I'm going to take away and live off of. And that just amplifies my fears rather than the other way around.
That's what coaches is for a lot of times, because a lot of people don't have the awareness to hold that space, but a good coach can. Yeah,
Totally.
that's
Totally. So
beautiful.
that was helpful. And the other thing that's really was helpful is getting outside in nature. I knew was really important
Mm,
for me to get outside as quickly as possible because
that's a good one.
yeah, nature is whole and one and unified, and I'm a part of it. And so even just if I was just going to lay outside on my hammock or sit outside, I'd spend as much time as I could outside. I spent as much time as I could eating as well as I could, exercising as much as I could, which, like I said, at one point I realized I was doing like 10% more every day in terms of walking. 10% is without inflaming myself, and 10% is like, 10 steps. When you're at 100 steps, you can do 10 steps the next day more. But over time, there is compound interest on that. And so, when you get up to being walking for a mile, 10% is a tenth of a mile more that you can walk. And then it goes faster, and I think that that's another thing that's really important for people to understand is that it's so slow at the beginning of, like you said, turning that train around. But once you get cooking the other direction, then you're growing and everything is changing so much faster. And then all of a sudden, I go from passing up where I was in my life before all of this happened and becoming this whole new me that I'm getting to know, because I'm like, what, mind blown that I can be that person, that my voice can go out in the world and affect change in this new
Yeah.
way. I feel so empowered. Even before I had the full use of my body back, I could see how strong my mind was. I could see how strong my heart was. And that was already beginning to impact people around me. I didn't, and here's another thing is that when I went at that time, I started realizing the power of what I had, and I started going to Dr. Joe's advanced follow-ups as well. And I got downloads about what my practice and my business would be like so that I could help people. At the same time, my kids were just becoming adults. They're right now they're 24 and 22. And they started their own business. So, I mean, like this ripples outwards, just this like feeling of empowerment. And by the way, one of the gifts too of me being laid up for that, I don't know, 6 months to a year was that my kids learned how to cook. I mean, there's benefits in everything.
Everything.
They're way more.
You're nothing to be the powerful, joyful person you are too now, right? It's like these are lessons. The body. One of the things I also teach my clients is that your body is not in pain because it hates you. It's in pain because it loves you. It's speaking to you.
Yeah.
It's like if a
Yeah.
kid came and was yelling at you, the kid is yelling at you for help. It's not yelling at you because it hates you. It's yelling at you for help. And if you can listen and you give the kid love, whatever that thing is, the yelling will go away, right? And the kid will feel joyful again. The same thing with our bodies. It's communicating to us. My family is West Indian, and West Indians are like notorious for beating their kids. I don't beat my kids. I don't believe in that. But I remember there's one thing they used to say is kids that don't hear will feel. And I kind of think like that with our life. Like if you don't listen, you're going to experience more pain, And so this is why I spend time in nature every morning, because I need to tune in. I need to get connected, because the more connected I am, the more tuned in I am, the more I can get that intuition, and I obey. I listen and I obey, because I want to learn from joy and ease instead of pain and suffering, And that first, when the messages come to you, it usually comes as a whisper. That's the intuition, just a knowing. And if you don't listen, and it's a lesson you have to learn, it's gonna get louder and louder, and that whisper is gonna turn into a bus hit, you know? And I don't need any more buses. I had enough buses in my life. So
Totally.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's so many gifts that just spiral outwards. And sometimes we think that it's all about us and our crisis and our learning. And we don't realize that other people around us are learning too from what's happening to us.
Yes.
Like there are benefits to all of these people around us, and it's part of their story. Just like when we're involved in somebody else's thing, and we only have control of ourselves and what we can do. But it's a much bigger picture, and I think it's helpful to remember that, and that it's benefiting everyone. Even if it looks like the hardest thing ever,
Yeah.
those challenges are all opportunities.
Everything is always working for our good.
Yeah. So yeah, and going into business for myself, and the kids went into business, and we're all teaching each other now. So it's this amplified. I mean, everything that we do just gets bigger if we're doing it with lots of heart and lots of alignment. And I kept going back to those Dr. Joe events, and here's the funny thing is that I've been to 4 advanced follow-ups, and the first one I went back to because I was thinking that I needed to go because I was kind of broken still. I had a problem with my eyesight. And then I was like, well, wait a second. Like, why do I want to justify having the money to go to a Dr. Joe event by saying that some part of my body's broken? I could be breaking parts of my body for 20 years to do that,
Yeah.
And I don't want to. I mean, I went the first one and I was a healee, and that was amazing. But I healed myself, I would say 60% of the way before I even went to that 7-day event, which is very
Just through the progressives in your own experience, right?
Yes, because I was diligent.
Because you were inconsistent. But before, because that's a great segue into how you manifested these things, because I think there was some guilt in there. We talked about that before, because a lot of people with families, I think especially women, I think women feel more guilt than men traditionally. I do feel the guilt too. But for some reason, my wife, any little thing she needs to do for herself, she feels tremendous guilt for it. And that we had to work on that, because I was just like, no, like you deserve all the love, You're given all this love, you deserve that love. But before we get there, I just want to know, what did you do for night? So we got the daytime, we got the middle of the day, you kept picking yourself back up. You would do meditations many times as you needed. Sometimes you had rough days, and you had the right people around you, or you spend the time in nature. But what did you do at nighttime? Did you have a routine for night, or did you just just fall asleep? You were just so exhausted from the day.
One thing that's really worth noting is that I was really watching and still do the tenor of my thoughts. Like, how do I feel? How do I feel based on my thinking? And if I start noticing myself feeling like, ugh, especially that icky feeling, icky usually means that I'm not in my power. And so one thing I've noticed about joy is that we can't feel joyful, in my perception, without being in our power.
Yes.
And so if I start feeling, it's because I'm not feeling in my power. And I'm like, okay, well, let's take a look at that. Is there a way that you can step into your power? Not power over, but like power with. How do I feel empowered in myself? How do I feel like I can partner with other people to affect the change that I want? That is what's interesting to me.
Mhm.
And that was so watching my thoughts, because I would say that one of the symptoms that I was feeling before, one of the primary symptoms, was feeling disempowered, feeling scared, frustrated, anxious. I felt like I was like, I didn't think of myself as a victim, but I really ultimately was subconsciously going, why is this happening to me? I don't understand. What is this? And this had become something that ruled my life
Yes.
and what I could do and couldn't do.
And that's really important. I don't want that to slip by anybody's awareness, but her being aware of who she's being. That's when Dr. Joe says you got to get up and be a different person. Neville Goddard talks about being the old man and the new man. No, everybody says this in a different way, but you have to understand that the experience that you're having came from a different person than the experience you'll be having from the healthy person. Like the healthy person is a different personality. It's a
Yeah.
different way of thinking and being. And so you have to be very aware of who you are being in every moment. And she did that. She was very aware, and then you did something about it to be that new person, because that new person is what's going to get you the new feeling, like you said, that spreads out, right? From
Yeah.
inside out. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
so
there's a
that's
skill.
great.
Yeah, there's a skill in awareness, and then there's a willingness to actually change the way you're thinking. They're both muscles to grow,
Yes.
skill and will. And they both relate to the nighttime routine that you mentioned, because at night, as our brain starts to quiet and calm down and kind of drop from high beta to low beta to alpha, we're very suggestible in our old self, like you said, and those habits of thinking pop in and unawares. And it's like, oh, so I used to like hold on so tight to, nope, we're only positive thinking, and only feeling good. So a lot of times I would, what I call, prime myself to sleep, imagine the best possible feeling as I went to sleep. And that would, by focusing on the feeling, and this is still a hack that I do all the time, like focus on the feeling of something that feels really good. Next thing you know, I'm out, because whatever you focus your attention on, whether it's a feeling or a thought, that's what takes your whole consciousness. When you really focus with everything, there's no way to keep thinking when I'm focused like that on my feeling. And if it feels good, then my whole body is orienting toward that. I'm having ease in my body rather than dis-ease. I'm having my autonomic nervous system is calming. My serotonin levels are going up, and my cortisol levels are going down. Like, all of that is happening when I am intentionally focusing on what feels good. So my nighttime routines would be focusing on that. And I tell you, every time I woke up in the middle of the night, the pattern was for the heart to start racing and getting anxious again. And I was like, nope, we're just going to focus on keeping the mind quiet, feeling good, doing your stuff, come back, go to bed. And I would sleep through the night that way in those bits. But it took a lot of concentration.
Yeah,
Yeah,
concentration and time practice, right?
totally. And I would say too, that I was maybe like some of the folks out there listening too. I was honestly kind of mad at the beginning that
I was too. In my
I
general
had to
health
be the one to turn
towards
that train around. I have like zero energy. Why do I have to be the one? Why can't somebody do this for me? Give me the magic pill, give me the exercise, give me whatever. No, it's all on me. But there were no alternatives. What else was I going to do?
There's a surrender that has to happen when you realize, okay, it's on me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna have to do this, if I want to get better, this is what I have to do. And then you just start doing it, and you do the best you can. And so I love, like I said, like when I watch testimonials, because I watched a lot too when I was going through my healing journey, and you did, there's so many people that just skip over these little details. And this is what really brings me joy in our conversation right now, is that you're giving people that like the real deal. This is not like I meditated and then I got up one day and miraculously healed. No, you're telling them like, because when you don't get the full story and you just think somebody just meditated once or twice and miraculously healed, it gets you discouraged in your own journey, you know, and you think that I'm doing something wrong. And so for them to know that day after day, morning after morning, through the day, you were getting up, you were falling down, you were getting up in the night. And then how long were you doing this before you say you got to a place that you just felt like, yes, I'm good.
Yeah, it was like I was really not well for about 3 months before I found Dr. Joe, and then for about 5 months after that, 4 or 5 months after that, I was working it every day, like you said. And frankly, I'll also tell you that I'm grateful for the people who had their healing after 2 meditations, because I kept thinking, "Well, maybe this is the one." You know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Keeps me coming back, "Maybe." But you do have to, at the same time, have patience.
Yeah.
So I went 4 or 5 months doing that, and then I went to a week-long, um, in Indian Wells in 2020, and that was really powerful. By the time I finished there, that was 4 months in, I was about 75% better after being a Healy, and then I jumped up another couple notches in the 2 months following that and was able to leave my neurologist's office with a clear uh, slate. Yeah, they said, "Oh, there's nothing off in your neurological exam. Your reflexes are all good and everything," which is amazing.
Wonderful.
But I think it was probably another few months before I really felt not just like myself, but I even began to surpass. Like I said, my mind. I knew now how big my mind was, what the possibility was, and as I started attending these advanced follow-ups and getting these downloads of what was next, like
Yeah.
not just what was next, but like clarity. Like I'm like writing, all the specifics and all the details, which bizarrely came in like after meditation. It seems like most of my mystical moments and downloads happen after meditating, which is
Yeah.
very unusual. Not very unusual, but it is somewhat unusual. But I would always walk out with my money's worth.
And we're going to talk about that because I'm pretty sure those downloads turned into what you're doing now, which is the 25-day Prime and Shine, right?
Yeah, trying
Yeah,
to
trying
yeah.
straight down. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get there, I just want to, because, you're going through all of this and we went through this whole healing journey. But, a lot of people want to go to Dr. Joe. First of all, you did the progressive, right? And then you went to a seminar. But how were you able to get over the guilt that you first felt about doing it? And then also, how were you able to get the money? Because I know you didn't always have the money. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that's a big part of people's healing journey, because they think, and I know I've thought that sometimes, like, if I only can go to a Dr. Joe seminar, and I didn't have the money, and I was like, if I could just go, and now what I know I could have gone there, but I just cut it off immediately because I thought, I don't have the money. This is not going to happen. So that whatever you did in that time where you're like, you know, it was very difficult for you emotionally and physically, and you still was able to manifest this and to release any guilt and get this done for yourself is amazing. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. So the initial 7-day, we were primarily on my partner's income, and then I had a part-time job,
Mm.
which I had summer off, thank God, because I was not doing well during that period of time physically. But it was a stretch to make that payment for that. But it was one of those things that you can't afford not to afford it, because and it was very clear to my family what a turnaround was happening as
Mm.
I was doing these meditations, as I was changing my thoughts. They saw that there was a different person emerging out of the pile of mama on her bed that wanted her arms wrapped in cabbage
Hell,
leaves. I'm
Baba.
not kidding. It was so bad. It was really, like, really bad. But, so they were like, "Yes, go." I mean, there was no question. And it had been so bad for me that it was like, yeah, it was just no question. And then once I got back from that, I went to that first advanced follow-up to like complete the healing. That made sense. Then I wanted to go to another one. And then I realized, oh, I think I mentioned, I thought, oh, I'll go for my eyesight. And so I changed the way I was going. I decided I'm going to go to these because I want to. And I had to like really sit with that and talk with my partner and say, hey, is this like really okay? And she was like, yeah, this is really okay. I see the direction you're going. I trust the universe on this. I trust you on this. Go. You can decide if you want to go. And I've never been a groupie for anything. I can't even go to church regularly in any particular religion, but somehow I have gone to 4 advanced follow-ups. And at each one, I've gotten a different like aha moment, really like realizing that I would do something for myself. I would do something kind for myself if I had something broken. I mean, like you said about women in our culture, like how many does that speak to? I mean, if you're a woman watching this, think to yourself, how many times has that been the only time that you allowed other people to take care of you, that you allowed yourself to get some extra nourishment and extra nurturing? Like it doesn't have to be that way, but it's almost like we have to create this new culture and new being. And it's not just about pampering with a set of nice nails, clearly, but rather like what we're doing inside of us. What are we taking the time to do? And Dr. Joe talks about that. He talks about self-love is really about showing up and doing that meditation, even when it's early in the morning and you're exhausted, even when you really want to sit for a 30-minute meditation, but this turns out to be an hour and a half, just sticking with it because the value of that breaking open of your heart and mind, and you keep sitting down because you want more of it.
This is love into yourself.
Yeah.
So that first seminar you went to, that was just basically accepting love for yourself. You released the guilt and you decided that this was going to be love into yourself, even though it might not have been a great financial decision, right? And did you suffer from spending this money? Because I know we build up things in our head like I can't do it. Like, did you feel like this was money well spent after, or did you like suffer and all these things after you spend that money?
Oh, it's so awful. No, I mean, after the first time, I mean, again, my family was like, wow, we see the difference. It was great to get the neurologist report. I mean, that's like money in the bank, right?
Yeah.
But then going to the second one, it was kind of like the tail end of that healing journey and for me shifting my mind. But I told myself at the end of the second one, okay, here's the deal. I can't picture how I'm going to afford this going forward in the future. So if I'm going to afford this, it has to be in some other way. The money has to just drop in. So that's when I just decided. And on my flight home, I missed a plane. And when I didn't miss a plane, they asked if anybody wanted to bump. And I said, yes, I want to bump. And so they said, okay, well, you get a voucher, for bumping. I was like, right on. And the guy wrote it out to me. He's like, $1,500? You can get $1,500. And he just looked at me like, that's not right. That's not right. But it's so much money. I don't even think the ticket was worth half that. And I was like, thank you. And then I went home, and then a friend of mine from Dr. Joe Vance called me up and said, hey, I really need help, with da-da-da-da. Could you come and help me? I'll pay you, I'll pay you. And I said, sure. And it ended up being just oh no, you know what it was? We'd had a misunderstanding, and she said, look, I want to pay you because I know things were hard for your housing because of something I did. I'm going to give you $500. And I was like, whoa. And thank you. And that made the 2,000 for the next advanced follow-up. That's exactly the cost of the advanced follow-up. So I was like, okay, well, the next one's paid for. But then when then I said, look, I don't feel comfortable being, who I am. I don't feel comfortable accepting that money unless you let me help you out in some way. I could help with this and this. And she said, oh my gosh, can you come next week? And can you really help with like a bigger thing than what you're saying? And I happen to have a free spot in my calendar, which is maybe the only time in the century. And I went, and she said, well, I'll just pay for your whole next Dr. Joe. So then basically I had the next 2 days. Yeah,
Wow.
because I went out there for an entire week. So it was like, it was like the universe was clearly like, you need to go to these. You just need to go. Boom, boom, boom. And so I have, and then Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what? It wouldn't have happened if you didn't take that first leap of faith
Yeah.
with that first one that you paid for.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what this is what I kind of want to give to people who's listening to this. You have to take a leap of faith,
Yeah.
especially when it's with finances. A lot of times you have to take a leap of faith. And then once you do it one time, it's like it just loosens things up, and then it just starts to flow a lot easier. But to make a decision that is loving to you, not based on money, but what's really loving to you, and do what's loving to you. And then it's like you just like open the floodgates for loving things to happen for you to be supported in different ways. She didn't do a whole bunch of visualizations and all type of things. She just loved herself by paying for that first one. And then she set an intention to go to the next one, and then things just flowed, right?
Yeah, and it was just a choice that was in alignment with
Yep.
my values and who I was, and that I think you could also translate as love, but it felt like, okay, it would not be in alignment for me to say no to this at this
Yeah.
point, so,
Mhm.
yeah, gonna go for it.
Yeah. So sometimes I think people are driven by the fear of
Mhm.
lack, or that lack, and they're like, well, I can't do that. Even though I need it, I can't do it. But it's like when you take that leap and you just do whatever feels, like you said, in alignment with yourself, what feels right for you at that time. It's amazing to see how like the universe and how God just sweeps in and just starts to support you, when you take those first steps. So I love
Totally. Momentum.
momentum. Exactly. So, you healed yourself, you manifested more sessions, and now you're fully like downloading new things. And I'm assuming this is where the 25-day private time challenge came from, and all the other things you're doing now. So tell us a little bit about that, like what's happening. I know starting like June 1st. And
Yeah, it's
and
June 1st.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, so I teach classes, to students internationally year-round weekly, and there are only a couple of gateways into those classes, and usually I don't have one in June, but for the first time, I'm actually going to be opening my doors for new students
Mhm.
in June, and I'm going to be teaching one of the skills that is core to my Core Joy series, and that is priming. And we're going to be teaching it in depth, 25 days, 25 little mini lessons on YouTube Live. Plus, when you register, you also get invited to a Zoom um, initial gathering with everyone, and then there'll be a Zoom closing gathering with everyone. And there are some other opportunities that you have to work with me more intensively along the way and get a workbook and stuff like that. But it's going to be really powerful because when you wake up like I did way back then every morning, and just like Mark said, those first morning thoughts are so powerful. They can be empowering, or we can be like knocked flat by them. And it's nice to choose the first. And I will be leading you through priming. I'll be talking about, potential caveats, the things that keep us from showing up for ourselves, that keep us from being successful, um, worries, concerns, as well as we'll be sharing celebrations and ways to keep it fresh. And I'm just really excited about it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And guys, I already did a priming with her, and it was great. Like I just felt relaxed, it was something that was bothering me a little bit. And after I did it, she said that you'll be able to tap back into this energy throughout the day. And we did that maybe like hour and a half ago, maybe 2 hours ago. And it's still there, like I can tap back in. So the priming, I really love this technique.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do it. Priming is something that we do for the moment, in the sense that we are wiring our brain to feel better, feeling thoughts. And as I mentioned before, that benefits our entire body mind system. And then, of course, it also benefits our relationships, because when we get up out of that state and we
Mm.
go to relate to other people, we're so full of energy and
Yeah.
full of goodwill. And then, of course, people respond. And so the world is coming to us, and we have opened our mind. They've actually done research and shown that we see more when we are primed to feel better feelings. We actually see more in the field around us, and we hear more in the field around us, as opposed to being really focused and in a state of anxiety. So there's a whole bunch of scientific research behind this that I'm going to be sharing as well. So a lot of great reasons to do it. And yeah, just showing up every day is super valuable.
Yeah, one of my favorite teachers, and my favorite book is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And he said in there that thinking is a small fraction of consciousness. And I understood that deeply since I've been doing this joy practice. Since I've been on this joy practice where I call it do nothing. It's not really doing nothing, but
But looks like
doing nothing that you should do, is pretty much flowing with joy, following your bliss, And as I do that, what's happening is I realize that I've lived most of my life from my thinking, and thinking is so limited. And the more you flow with your bliss, the more you connect, you spend time in nature and things like, you start connecting with all of that stuff that's beyond thinking, and you get so many downloads, so many inspired actions, and you start to, it's like you're put on a track that it's invisible, but it knows exactly where it's going, and you just have to like enjoy the ride. So this is why I really love what that thing you said about coach helping people to find what is it, to find more joy, to what's the brain for more joy. I don't know, you said something about joy and I was just like, that's it, that is it.
yeah.
Yeah, she's so focused on like bringing joy within ourselves. And I love how you talk about it, like finding it within ourselves. And so, with manifestation, you can get really caught up in trying to find joy in the manifestation instead of finding joy here and now. And this is the real gift. This is the real pride. It's like feeling joy and flowing, having beautiful conversations like this with you, and having wonderful people in your life. And then those manifestations are just a cherry on top.
They are. And one of the things that you said about having experienced that priming earlier with me is that then you're reflecting back and you're pulling. It's like you get to just reach up and pick the cherry off of that tree that you grew while you were priming all day long. So it's like it's beautiful in the moment, and then you can pull that feeling anytime. And on top of that, you are experiencing your world differently. So it's like multi-dimensional, the ways that this supports you. And I have many people who I've worked with have been like, oh my gosh, it is mind-blowing what a difference this makes.
Yeah. I just want to thank you for today. This has been wonderful. Yeah, this has been really wonderful. This has been a joy to speak to you when we first met a couple of days and we spoke, and now speaking today. And I just want to encourage anybody that's watching this. I'm going to put all the information in the description below to join the 25-day Prime and Shine Challenge, because it's free, right?
Yeah, it's free.
It's free. You have nothing to lose. You just heard an amazing story. She's done it. She lived it. She did it. You can't have a better person to take you through to the other side. Does Dr. Joe say, to the other side of the river?
Yeah, crossing the river. Come cross the river with me. It's an initiation. You're doing it in community. We learn better in community anyway. Our brains, when we feel safe in community, we start to share, it helps us to relax and perceive things in new ways. So yeah, it's good. Just like we are here right now. Thank you so much, Mark, for having me. I so appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And I really appreciate everybody who's with us today.
Yeah, so we'll just wrap this up now. Like I said, everything is going to be down in the description. And if you guys like these type of videos, just like it and comment, because this is going to be one of many. And I'm just so grateful that this is the first one that I did today. Thank you, Kristen, so much.
I subscribe today.
Subscribe.